recording. And you can ask questions via Q&A box at the bottom. So I would definitely recommend doing that. Any questions that you have for any of our panelists, they are here to share with you what you have questions about. And so definitely make use of them and ask those questions. That being said, my next question for all of our panelists is, what are some of the common entry-level jobs that are at your organization? Either what are their position titles, what types of roles are they, and what do these roles do? And if there are kind of typical days for these roles, if you could talk about that as well. I know in many fields, there is no such thing as a typical day. So if that is the case, are there themes or trends in, the work that's being done, kind of any cyclical things that might come up? So Emma, if we could start with you, maybe talking about how you entered into the field even, that might be a great place to start.
Yeah, so I myself have a bachelor's in molecular genetics. I did some graduate work, and I found myself in need of a job. I graduated in a tough economy. I was looking for a job during the Great Recession, and I found that I was able to use the skills that I picked up in my education and translate them into a very stable job in a clinical laboratory. When you look at people that kept their jobs versus didn't keep their jobs over the last 2 years, the essential employees that had to keep coming to work during the pandemic, those are the folks that worked in essential businesses. So healthcare was one of the biggest, and virology as a subspecialty was the biggest. So I have 15 years of experience in molecular virology and infectious disease, and I have expanded into more molecular oncology and human genetics as kind of the disciplines that Semaphore focuses on. But we were able to, during the early days of the pandemic, along with Yale and other Connecticut healthcare institutions, to rapidly spin up virology testing and bring a lot of people into the laboratory and put them into other kind of entry-level jobs. And so folks that are looking for job stability and turning their education into a career that has long-term sustainability in a changed world would be good to look for jobs in healthcare. And we have a lot of healthcare folks here today.
Awesome, thank you for that. And kind of going off of that, Christine, do you want to talk about Semaphore and as a whole some of the entry-level positions?
Absolutely. We're doing a couple very interesting things. We started an internship program. I've been here since the beginning, January of 2017, when we were an actual spin-out new venture of Mount Sinai, their genomics lab. That's how Semaphore came to fruition. Well, I'm in Florida and there's a horrible storm coming, so I apologize. Something on what Emmett was saying, during COVID, I got a phone call from my boss. It was probably late April. Christine, we got to ramp up and we're going to open 5 production lines in the Branford, Connecticut lab to run COVID. And it was Yale, us, and Jax, were the Jackson laboratories were the main ones at doing this. So we were able to quickly find recent college grads. I have great relationships with many of the state universities and colleges. So I called all their advisors. I said, get me resumes. It was a beautiful program. We ramped up very quickly. And it was a great, and for a lack of a better term, it was a great try and buy for recent grads, both undergrads and graduates, to come get a feel as a temporary employee, what it's like a day in the life of a lab, especially when you're in the frenetic nature of COVID testing. We were quickly able to cross-train a lot of these individuals and convert them to full-time Semaphore employees. We had over 120 temps. How many did we convert? About 80?
Yeah, we hired over 100 people last year, and that's not counting COVID temps and temp conversions. So, it's a tremendous number of people. I've literally lost count.
And we have a bunch of great UConn folks in our labs. Emmett was working with the Stanford campus. We brought on a couple great interns that I received college credits. We also work with the state of Connecticut and the governor's office. It's called the Governor's Initiative Fellowship. So if we bring on somebody who is a Connecticut grad, there's other parameters to it. It's very easy. So any recent grads from 2021 to 2022 that we hire through this GIF program, not only will they become a semaphore family member, they also get a 5,000 grant payable super quick. My last batch of GIF candidates from 2020 were paid their $5,000 grant within 8 weeks. So we have a great affiliation with the state. They've backed us. Connecticut Innovations has backed us. So we're huge proponents of bringing on any Connecticut State University. We have a bunch of Yale folks with us. So get the word out, everybody. Our labs are booming and we're expanding.
So we have two types of job that we are recruiting for at the entry level and the recent grad level. And that would be testing and non-testing. The major difference between that is the type of degree that you've earned. To be testing personnel in the clinical laboratory, you need to have a minimum of an associate's or a bachelor's degree in biology, biochemistry, chemistry, or another physical science, or enough credits from whatever type of degree you have. Environmental science with a focus on biology or pre-med very often are going to qualify. And so those can qualify you as technical testing employees in the laboratory. And those are the jobs that usually have a premium on the entry-level wages. There are other types of support structure, data analysts, clerks, warehouse material control folks, which you wouldn't think that that's a complex job, but in a healthcare environment, it can be quite complex. And we very often take people with BA or BS in a physical science because they understand the terminology that we're using in the laboratory.
Awesome. And thinking about the day-to-day or non-day-to-day, if there is no routine, but I guess what is that like for someone who's coming in?
Yeah, so like I said, we are essential healthcare workers. And so we work in a production environment where we get new samples every day. So blood, saliva, prenatal samples. We work in oncology and in reproductive genetics. So we're working with cancer samples and with samples from pregnant women. We're turning those into DNA, and we're looking at that DNA in multiple ways using many cutting edge technologies to generate data. Other parts of our company, as a large data healthcare company, are using bioinformatics, statistics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning on that data to interpret it and turn it into results for clients and patients so that the doctor and the genetic counselors can then provide that information. Our job is handling physically those samples, the reagents and the instruments and the infrastructure, both data infrastructure and physical infrastructure, to ensure that those samples are pushed through the processes at a high level of quality, ensuring that we're getting the right results for all of our patients.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Michelle, would you be able to talk about the common entry-level jobs that you hire for? I know you mentioned some of the areas, but specific position titles that you might hire for most frequently, what they do, and is there a typical day? What does that look like?
All of our hospitals, when you work in healthcare, the biggest thing to remember is we're 24/7. So it's a great opportunity for people in school to be working while you're going to school, which also adds to your resume for when you graduate, because you already have, real world experience. So we have all kinds of different levels in a health system of different types of entry level jobs that you can be doing while you're going to school too, because they're 24/7. And as we found out through the last couple of years, every position in our system is crucial. So in my area specifically, if we're talking, I would say we're talking over the last couple of years and more science related, we have everything from like phlebotomy, collecting those samples. We've got pharmacy tech. A lot of people who are on the pre-med track will just sit for their pharmacy tech exam and they can work in the pharmacy. We have 24/7 pharmacy techs, but yet we also have things that people could do that have nothing to do with, specific science. We've got clerks that work in the different units. That's just an entry level, secretary that takes phone calls. We've got food service, we've got housekeeping, we've got, pretty much 24/7. We have people who our contractors, electricians, licensed, we have IT staff 24/7. So really pretty much anything that you would want to do in the facility, the best thing to do would be to reach out to the talent acquisition team. Our team, I'm here speaking with you today, but we have a team of at least 15 talent acquisition partners. Our talent acquisition team total is about 50 of us recruiting for all of our entities. And we have doctors' offices all over the state as well. So there's so many different arenas. The main things that we look for in all of our candidates is we can teach experience, but we cannot teach culture. So we look for people who will always want to put our patients and as their number one priority. And that's really kind of what all of our interview structure and everything else is surrounded by. No matter what your task or your role is, you have to know the why behind the what, and then the rest we can do for experience. So really, we kind of look at your experience and your resume, and then we'll kind of try to guide you to what we feel would be the best entry level based on what your career goals are also. And we'll try to, introduce you to that right career path.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Abby, can we bring this one over to you? So, the entry level positions, what they do a typical day.
Absolutely. So like I said in my intro, we are looking for service members to start serving with FoodCorps this fall. So serving with FoodCorps is a paid full-time 11.5-month commitment that begins in August. The commitment goes until June or July. So you kind of go with your typical school year calendar. And then there's the opportunity to do another year after, or you can choose to make this just 1 year. So this is a really good opportunity for seniors who are graduating and looking to get some experience working with children, working in nutrition, as well as working with community service and in the farm to school programming and equity programming. And this is also a good opportunity for any students who are looking to take a gap year of sorts. So again, it is just the 11.5-month commitment with an opportunity to do a second year. Service members are placed in 1 to 2 schools within one community, and they work with local organizations to build healthy school environments. So the way a service member would go about building this environment is with the 3 pillars of FoodCorps, which are hands-on learning, healthy school meals, and school-wide culture of health. Hands-on learning is really getting into the classroom, getting into gardens, and getting into taste testing. So working with children, teaching all types of lessons on nutrition, on how to cook, and on how to eat healthy so that our bodies feel really good. And again, this is working with children. So bringing it down to elementary school to middle school level. The second pillar, the healthy school meals, is connecting with children in cafeterias. So this can look like school-wide taste tests where a service member is introducing a brand new fruit or vegetable that is daunting to children, or just a fruit or vegetable children are used to, but in a different way, and then allowing the kids to have the opportunity to vote on how they felt about the food. This pillar can also be the service members' presence in the cafeteria, where we know a lot of children have this whole fruits and vegetables are gross, and we're going to eat what's the main meal on a tray and throw away the rest of the stuff. So this is an opportunity for service members to engage with students in the cafeteria and make trying new things safe and supportive, so that down the line, the kids are able to try new things on their own. And then with the school-wide culture of health, this is really working with the school and the entire community that the service member is stationed in. So this can be anything from decorating the school hallways and the cafeteria to making the school grounds beautified. And a lot of FoodCorps service members come into their service looking to build school gardens or to enhance current gardens. So that's a really great opportunity to bring a huge change to a community. And this also looks like engaging with parents and local community partners to enhance the entire feel around healthy food and making it something that children not only have access to, but feel a desire to eat and to enjoy, and they understand why they should. So a typical day pretty much puts those 3 pillars into action. So it looks like going into classrooms, teaching nutrition lessons, being in the cafeteria, sharing meals, and then joining with community partners to create an overall culture of health.
Awesome. I have a quick follow-up question. So obviously a lot of this is, interacting with students at the school. Do FoodCorps members have like offices in the school, or what is that kind of logistical setup for, where they're working when?
That's a great question. So that can really differ depending on the site where the service member is stationed, which is all part of the interview process where you end up being placed. So some service sites, the service member would have an office within the school and possibly an office within more of the food service realm. So I served with FoodCorps in 2017 to 2018, and my school was a couple miles down the road from where my site supervisor was stationed. So I had an office in a different school that really kept all of my materials. And then I had an office in the school where I was teaching lessons that kept like the day-to-day or what was going to be coming up that week. And again, this can change depending on where you're serving, but it tends to be wherever the site supervisor is. So the site supervisor might be the food service director who is overlooking the entire towns or cities, all the school's food, or the site supervisor might be more of a parent partnership within the school itself. So that might be where the main office is.
Awesome. And one other follow-up question. So I know when Emmett was talking, he mentioned, some of the majors that, at least like the technical side of testing, are looking for. Are there specific majors that students have to have, or any sort of background that they have to apply?
No. So our requirements are that you are 18 years of old and you hold a high school diploma. So I think the community that we're speaking with today is going to meet those requirements. And we also look for people who have licenses and a reliable way to transport. But overall, when you are applying to FoodCorps, we're not looking for nutrition majors or for education majors or for public health majors. Those things all look really, really awesome, and it gives you the background that you would appreciate going into service. But what makes FoodCorps really special is there is very wonderful training that will, if you are more, you have the background of nutrition, but you aren't sure about yourself as a teacher, they will boost you as a teacher, and vice versa. If you feel really confident as a teacher, but you know nothing about gardening, FoodCorps is going to teach you all of that. And if this is something that is sparking a fire within you today and you have no background in nutrition, teaching, gardening, anything, FoodCorps will give you the proper tools before you start service, as well as all throughout. So FoodCorps is very community-based, and there's constant 24/7 support. So we're not looking for any type of major or background, just a love and a desire to help children live their healthiest lives.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And then Rachel, we will bring this question to you. So common entry-level jobs in the organization, what the roles do, and what a day looks like, either for them or for you or both.
Sure. So like I mentioned before, we're a huge pharmaceutical company. So we have a number of different opportunities, whether it's within the sciences or, outside of that. But I'll just spend more time talking a little bit more about like what I do, because obviously I know a little bit more about that than some of the science stuff. So we actively recruit on campus every year for our summer internship that we have, which is a great opportunity for juniors that will obviously be returning after the internship for their senior year. And essentially you get full autonomy. You really get a taste of what a day in the life of a sales rep looks like, which is great. So you actually will get kind of paired up with a pod or territory based on where you call home during the summer. And it's a 10-week paid internship program where you would get a car, a corporate card, because we do meetings and things like that for expenses, and an iPad, which we use in the field that has all of our resources and things that we use. And essentially on a day-to-day of what I do, we basically, my partner and I call on primary care offices. So that will include like internal medicine, family practice, PAs, nurse practitioners, basically anyone within that primary care space. And then I focus on diabetes specifically. And so basically my partner and I, we have a list of offices that we're responsible for calling on and essentially partnering with them, providing resources for patients on, how to start off on our medication, understanding, coverage, but also educating providers too on our clinical data, why our medication might be an appropriate solution for that patient, things like that. So we do a lot of just quick communication. Sometimes it's a really quick, 2-minute call. Sometimes I'm able to make an appointment with an office and actually have a lunch meeting, or we'll do programs, whether they're inside the office or outside the office, where we actually have someone who's like a specialist. So for example, within my primary care space, we would have an endocrinologist actually come to the office and talk about one of our medications, to kind of provide their perspective on why they're writing and why, what benefit they see their patients receiving by having that medication. So a lot of it is business planning. A lot of it is, making sure that we're asking the right questions to kind of see how we can be a partner for that office, and also do what we call a total office sell, I guess. So what I mean by that is we go beyond just talking to the provider. We also work with, nurses, the receptionists, basically anyone who touches a patient during their visit. I want to make sure that they feel confident and knowledgeable about what Lilly has to offer, whether it be our medication or patient resources, or we have a bunch of affordability stuff too that helps. So it's just kind of closing that gap, and helping them, see the benefit in choosing a Lilly medication for their patient. And then I know I start off with our sales internship, but we also have a ton of openings for full-time roles. So if you are a senior graduating, now's the time to definitely check out our career website, because we are actively looking to fill. We went through kind of an expansion a little bit and restructured some things. So we're looking to hire, I think the beginning of the year, we had 600 positions open. So we're definitely looking to get people in, and you don't have to have a specific major to come in, especially with entry level. It can be really intimidating coming into pharmaceutical sales environment, and the training is pretty extensive. So just to give you background, I was a communications major when I was at UConn, so I didn't have the science background going into the role. However, through the training, we do a lot of disease state training. We do a lot of really looking at all the clinical data, looking at all of the studies that were done on the medication, to really give yourself that background to be able to have very in-depth clinical conversations with providers. And it's an ongoing process as well. So in the beginning, when you would get hired, whether it's for the internship or for the full-time role, obviously duration would change depending on if you're the intern or full-time, but you do some home study where you're looking at disease state, then you would actually go to our headquarters in Indianapolis and do live training, you do role play. So how to actually take the knowledge that you have and translate that into what a conversation would look like, and everything like that. You do a lot of shadowing, plus, whether you are, so if you're in the internship, you'd get pulled into where you call home over the summer. So you'll partner with whatever territory you fall in geographically, but with our full-time positions, we're hiring nationally. So if you're geo-flexible, there's opportunity to kind of, move to a new location, or if you're looking to stay in Connecticut or this tri-state area, there's tons of opportunity here across our number of business units that we have available. So.
Thank you so much for that. So the next question that I have is actually one that came through from one of our attendees. So really thinking about your role, the work you do, how does that play a role in the broader scope of health or healthcare as a field? And so I think, Rachel, we can start with you for that. I know you've kind of mentioned a little bit about what you do, but kind of what is, I guess, how does your role connect more broadly into that field?
So essentially everything that I do, I mean, Lilly is a very patient-centric organization, and we're really driven by improving patient outcomes, whether that's like innovating new medication or, trying to come up with resources and ways to help make patients' lives easier managing their health. It's just speaking from my business unit being within the diabetes space, that is a very intensive, disease to manage and requires a lot. And so I know, from my day to day, like I spend a lot of time also working with the nursing staff and making sure that they're able to handle questions with patients that are maybe nervous about using a needle for the first time, or, what does A1C mean? Like, what does it mean when my sugars go up? How to eat properly. We provide a lot of those tools that help facilitate those conversations. The other thing too is making sure affordability is there too. So like I spend a lot of time at pharmacies as well, and making sure they're aware of programs that are available from Lilly, copay cards, things like that. So we kind of hit it from the provider's perspective and make sure we provide education from that perspective, but also making sure that accessibility is there, that patients feel confident. So in terms of healthcare, we kind of cover like that full picture from provider to patient.
That's super helpful. Emmett, would you be willing to answer that one as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So without the clinical laboratory, doctors are just guessing. We give results, answers, right? So if you're interested in pharmaceuticals, like if you're going to sell a drug, what's the dosage? What is the pharmacogenetics of the utilization of the drug within your body? We can give that answer at the genetic level. If you have a family history of cancer, what are the genes that you need to monitor? What are the preventative measures that you need to take? You need to go to the hospital. You need to get a breast exam. You need to get regular screenings. What are the other procedures that you might have in a hospital environment? Maybe you have cancer. What are the best treatments for you that have been proven to work for people that have your type of cancer? Even at a health level, your personal biome. What are the deficiencies or the excesses that you have in your metabolic cycles, and how can you address them with proper, good, healthy eatings, right? So like the clinical laboratory even connects with everybody else on this panel in the ways that we provide results to doctors. But the thing that Semaphore does differently compared to other genetic insight companies is we provide actionable results. These aren't, fun little questions about, are you related to Marie Antoinette? It's how is my life going to change with this data in my hands? How am I going to take my healthcare and personally own the journey with my doctor, with my primary care physician, with my specialists to make the decision so that my doctor isn't guessing, right? With the proper tests, your doctor is better informed, but it's usually looking at the population level of what works for most people. What we do is what works for you as a patient, for your cancer, for your reproductive journey, and for your own personal health.
And I'd just like to add with Rachel at Eli Lilly, Semaphore has been involved in collaboration with Lilly on Alzheimer's studies. So yes, we also partner with large pharma out there, as Emmett said, in pharmacogenomics. We're able to, if you're ingesting any type of pharmaceutical, we're able to look at that level to see how your body is metabolizing it. But we're also looking at drug discovery. So getting in with the Sanofis, the Eli Lillys, and other large pharmas. How can we help them through our analytics in betterment of drug discovery? The patient always comes first. So
if you come from a research background, if you come from a research background and clinical laboratory science sounds foreign to you, it's because not a lot of people have thought about it, except maybe in the last couple of years when we started thinking about COVID testing, right? And it's kind of been uncovered. But if you think about how are drugs discovered and how is research done, it's the same type of tasks and skills in a laboratory that get that research done. And so we are also a contract research organization that, as Christine said, does a lot of the clinical level work, which requires higher level of certification and regulation in the specific type of laboratory that we are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Michelle, if you want to add anything, feel free, but it is pretty, I think, obvious how you are connected to the healthcare field. But if there's anything you want to add, I'll give you a second if you want to add it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add some topics. In my career did not start in healthcare. So, I actually started my career in the military. So I'm doing completely the opposite. But the reason I joined healthcare after the military, I kind of stumbled into it. But I've been in healthcare now for over 30 years. So I'm very happy. I kind of went from my military service to then coming into healthcare. I went from my military family to my healthcare family. And I love working in healthcare. And what I do as a recruiter and working in human resources is I get to change the lives of people every day, by giving people the opportunity to obtain a new job, and not only just a job, but a new career, and to watch them change the lives of so many in our community. And that's really what healthcare is all about. It's especially if we have not noticed anything over the last couple of years. It's about how we are impacting everyone in our community. And here at Yale, we're right on the forefront of not just helping people in Connecticut, but also, on the verge of helping people all over with the research, the education, the technology. So to be a part of that every day, it's just really an honor. So, that's really kind of, that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you so much for that. The next question I have, and we can actually start with you on this one, Michelle, but thinking about success in the field and the specific positions you're hiring for or position that you currently have, what skills are essential for success? And so kind of thinking about it for our students attending today, as they're working to further develop some of their skills, whether they be transferable skills or even technical skills, what skills would you say are essential to success?
Sure. And I'm going to preface this. I don't think there's anyone in the audience today. Primarily, a lot of my experience has been more on the nursing recruitment side. So, and that's not really our audience today, but I do recruit a lot also on the pharmacy side. But pretty much a lot of what skills we look for as recruiters when we're looking at resumes, we're looking for quite a few things. We're looking at what kind of experiences you've had, what kind of things you've been studying. But we also look to see that you have done things in the community. We're looking to see that you are able to communicate well. We're looking to see that you're able to, read, write, speak, communicate well, because those are all the skills really that are transferable when you're working in healthcare. So we don't care if you've been like a waitress or a bartender, or if you've been working in retail, or if you've been whatever. We just want to know that you've been successful and that you can talk well about those programs, and you can talk about the great customer service that you've had, the great relationships that you've had in previous environments, those kind of things. So really, those are kind of the things that we like you to highlight on your resume and to talk about in your interview process.
Great, thank you for that. Abby, we can send this one over to you.
I would say that the skills essential to working with FoodCorps are mostly a desire and drive to help others and to support a community. That's really big. Just feeling that fire to go out and do some really great work and to change some lives, and the confidence in your own self, knowing that you are capable of doing that. As well as that, I would also say an ability to be authentic and to be vulnerable. FoodCorps is looking to tackle some heavier issues in the food system and the school system. So there is a need there to be able to handle some difficulty and some challenges and to figure out solutions while working on a team, as well as the ability to stay organized and to time manage. So there's a lot of things that a FoodCorps service member juggles, and our service sites can have anywhere from 1 service member to 4 service members. So you might be working by yourself, or you might be working with a few teammates. And both of those are really wonderful opportunities, but they also require a certain level of, like I said, organization and making sure that you are scheduled out and you know where to be at a certain time, and just to show up and be yourself and just be of service to others. Those are the most important things we're looking for coming into service.
Awesome. Christine?
I'm going to marry Abby over there. Exactly what she said. You know, we look for candidates, future employees that are motivated. With us, with our fast trajectories here, there's always a detour in the road. We're hitting the brakes. We're starting something new. Technology changes, plans change. So you have to be able to navigate around ambiguity. You have to have a fairly high level of critical thinking and problem solving, because we're not the company. If you expect to come in and have your hand held and here's your punch list for the day, you're going to drown here. You really have to be self-sufficient. And again, that problem solving skills. And like Abby said, you have to show up. You have to have some sense of maturity. You know, stuff happens to us all the time. A lot of things have happened to us in the last few years, you know, but as an employer, as an employee for an employer, you know, there is some maturity that has to be had in that. You know, stick to your schedule. You know, we're in a laboratory. We have set schedules. You know, you have a little leeway with a few things, but, you know, we're in a highly, highly regulated environment where we are. If you're not paying attention, it's always safety first. You know, we're CLIA CAP compliant. A lot of things can go wrong. And if you're not following the training and listening to your manager, we try not to have to say things 6-7 times, but if needed, so attention to detail is, and Emmett, you live the life every day. I don't work in the lab, so Emmett could definitely speak to that.
Communication. Like if there's any soft skill that is absolutely essential in all of healthcare, it's communication. And that comes down to the ability to listen, the ability to remember, and the ability to, you know, communicate what you are viewing in the world. If you're solving a problem, or if you see an issue, if you have a gut feeling that something might need to be fixed, right? That's the type of soft skills that we're looking for. But really, what we're looking for in employability, all of us here are looking for some hard skills. Some of us are able to provide hard skills, and some of us are looking for hard skills to come in. And the one thing that is going to make any candidate more easily employable is coming in with something that they can demonstrate as a hard skill. And that's not experience in the bullet point on a resume kind of fact, like, oh, I've done it once in a lab. I'm talking about having picked something and shown that you are proficient in it. You can do it 100 times. Like, my favorite question in an interview is, what are you good at? And even just having an answer and knowing that you can do something, providing that you've done some hard skill, doesn't even need to be healthcare or science or laboratory related, but showing that you have mastered something is a skill.
So I have a follow-up question, potentially set of questions to that, going back to something you were saying, Christine, and also Abby as well, talking about some of the things that you're looking for that I would say are more soft skills, but sometimes might be hard to convey on a resume. So, you know, being mature and professional and motivated, some of those types of things. How do you either recommend or most like to see candidates demonstrating some of those skills? Does it need to be a resume? Does it, you know, is it okay in an interview? What do you like to see? Abby, yeah.
I think a cover letter goes a really long way. So a cover letter is a really great opportunity to convey the skills that are softer skills that you wouldn't bullet point on your resume. And it kind of gives the people who would be going over your FoodCorps application a little bit of a taste of maybe your experience that you weren't able to put in your resume. Or I think when you're writing cover letter, your passion is able to really come across super clearly. So cover letters can be very helpful there. And then, yeah, like Jess said, it would be an interview opportunity for you. So interviewing with the FoodCorps folks themselves, as well as with the site in Connecticut, you have the opportunity to really let yourself shine and get to know the other folks who you would be working with as well.
Christine, anything to add to that?
Oh, yes, of course. Following Abby again, a great example is UConn, Dr. Judy Brown. I work very closely with her and her graduate students. Last year, or was 2020, a handful of her students, they were tasked with writing a cover letter once they went on and saw a job description. So I was able to read 5 or 6 cover letters. I'm on the fence with cover letters, that more so than not, if the resume is so deeply technical, like Emmett brought up earlier, bioinformatics, highly technical. If it's not translating on a resume, I will recommend to the candidate to send me a cover letter and touch, or if they have a more lengthy background that you don't want to jam it all in. But it was interesting, this little exercise I did with Dr. Brown and reading, and I was able to grade A, B, C, and D. And each individual brings their own flavor to a cover letter. And, you know, exactly what Abby was saying, it gives you a sense of more so their personality than the bullet points. So I'm a huge proponent of cover letters. Some people in HR and recruiting think it's a big waste of time and it's just one more thing to read. And I will coach when I'm working with candidates, and especially recent grads. I do a lot of hand holding with them. I'm a good career coach when it comes to that, of don't say this, maybe you should say that, you know, tell me what some of your barriers are. So
not
again,
every resume is applicable to every job.
Exactly.
Right? There are jobs where a cover letter is absolutely necessary. Then there are jobs where you really need a curriculum vitae, right? A list of what you have done and what hard skills and experiences you've accumulated. In some industries, you know, some jobs in a hospital and many jobs in a laboratory, you are required to have a certain number of hours and days doing things. And so listing specifically, I have done this for this many years. You know, I have this many hours performing this task. Those are often requirements for a job, and you can say them in a cover letter, but you know, sometimes you need to spell them all out. So even knowing the job that you're applying to and how to convey your experience, skills, background is very important.
Thank you for that. Michelle, I'm going to pass this to you. So feel free to, you know, include skills that you look for, but also ways in which you recommend people conveying them.
Certainly. So I also am on the fence with the cover letters. As a recruiter who has to view like thousands and thousands of applications daily, weekly, we often don't get to the cover letter. So what we look for in resumes to see if people are motivated, and there are many ways to see if they're motivated, are many of the clubs that you have to include everything you're doing, whether it's volunteering, whether you're on a committee. If you're on a committee, are you a secretary? Are you sitting on the actual board for that committee? There are many ways to show that you're a person who is motivated beyond what you're actually doing, and show that you're just not that person that's going to show up every day and want the paycheck for doing the bare minimum. And a good recruiter is going to see that in your resume. But you need to include everything. And there is no more thing as the one-page resume. So don't try to squeeze everything that your school is asking of you into a one-page. You have to expand all of that out, and people will see exactly how motivated you are. And you can include your athletics and your awards. Not every single one. You know, I won first place in my 6th grade Olympic trial, but the ones that count and the ones that matter and the ones that recruiters will know about, because those are the ones that show that you will go above and beyond for anything. And those are the things that are going to tell people that you are motivated beyond what someone else is. So there are all those things that you should add. And at any point, you can reach out to your career services counselors, to your professors, to us recruiters, and we will always give you guidance. That's our passion beyond what we get paid for. And we'll give you some of that guidance too, but there's many ways to show your motivation, even, and cover letters great too for certain roles, but depending on where you're applying, if it's an entry-level job, I say, the cover letter is not always needed, but if it's a sales marketing, or if it is a higher level job, then yes, you probably will need the cover letter eventually.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Just want to add in two things. One, to all of our attendees, if a job application requires that you submit a cover letter, you do still need to submit it, whether or not that is the focal point, but completing, following directions, completing all of the necessary components is part of the application process. So please make sure that you're doing that. And then also, you can see that everyone who's answered this question so far has really talked about, yes, the technical skills, but a strong emphasis on those transferable skills. And it is really important that you are connecting your classes, your clubs and organizations, your internships, volunteer, et cetera, to those skills that are necessary for success in the field. And so please, if you are struggling to make that connection or you want to talk through that, make an appointment with us in the Career Center. Is what we are here for, to kind of help you think through those things. And then also to help you with your resume, make sure that you are conveying all of the ways in which you are, extremely qualified for the positions that you want to be applying for. So thank you for all of those answers. Rachel, is there anything that you want to add to the skills question?
Yeah, just two things real quick. Obviously a lot of what everyone shared, to your point, shows that, a lot of those transferable skills are really crucial, because in any role, they're going to teach you specifically what you need, the specifics for that job. So I think if you come in with an eagerness to learn, being open-minded, and disciplined, especially in my role, I'm not in a typical office job where I have my manager behind my back saying like, oh, you haven't, called this doctor yet or whatever. No, my job is very face-to-face. I spend a lot of my time driving to all of these offices, anywhere between 8 to 12 offices a day. And I have to do that myself. My manager's not going to call everyone on my team and say, hey, it's, 10 o'clock, how many offices? No, that's not how it works. So I think really being disciplined and organized are so crucial in any job that you do. And the other thing too is just being hungry to learn. I think in any job, you should always be looking to constantly improving your skills or learning a new piece of information. I think especially in healthcare, it's such an innovative space and things are always growing and pushing the boundaries in anything. So I think showing that you're willing to learn and you're hungry for that knowledge and wanting to expand, I think really makes you competitive. The other thing too, I would recommend, and I'm sure anyone who's put together a resume probably follows this, but I know one thing we look for our sales and even for the sales internship is a star formatted resume, in the sense that what's the situation, the task, the action, and the result. Because a lot of what we do too is problem solving, critical thinking, and results based outcomes. So we want to make sure that, hey, whatever challenge you were facing or whatever leadership role you had, well, that's great. But if it didn't really result in anything, changing positively, then really was that something that you really made an impact on, So I think really focusing on things where this was, the challenge, or this was my leadership opportunity. These were some of the things that I've done, and this ended up being the outcome. Especially within sales, we really are looking at what the end result, what were the results based on the actions you took, and kind of problem solving and going through that. And that's something you can put on the resume and even transfer that for when you're face to face in the interview as well.
Thank you so much for that. All right, we are coming up towards the end of time. So one last call. If any students have questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A box, and we will make sure we answer them either today or we'll follow up with you with an answer. But I have one last question for our panelists, and that is if you could give one piece of advice to our students, because you can, what would that piece of advice be? Rachel, do you want to just start this one?
Sure. I think it's something I just mentioned, but I always bring it up, is be open-minded. The worst thing you can do for yourself is look at something and judge it and be like, I don't feel like I'm qualified for that, or I'm maybe missing like one piece of the puzzle that they've mentioned in their thing, or I don't know if I'll be good at that. I think the worst thing you can do is pigeonhole yourself and sell yourself short without giving yourself a shot. Obviously you want to make sure it's relevant to what you want to do and like, things that you've done. But at the end of the day, like if you don't put yourself out there, like you'll never get the interview, you'll never get the feedback to help maybe make your resume better or interview better, or hey, maybe I'm missing this and I should join, this club or look for this opportunity. If you don't put yourself out there, then you'll never know and you won't move along and progress forward. So I think just being open-minded and don't pigeonhole.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Christine?
Loaded question. I could talk about this for days. But based on what the last question was, what I personally like, especially with undergrads and graduates, is a follow-up after our conversation, after our video chat, a follow-up with the hiring manager. What was your takeaway from the conversation? What did you learn? Where did our company resonate? Where did the role resonate with you? I'm going to go to bat for you more so than somebody who's not emailing me and showing me their enthusiasm. So a really well-crafted personal, and I hate to say a thank you note, but just your takeaway from the conversation. And that's what I say to candidates after I have them meet with our hiring manager or a panel interview. I said, let's hop on the phone for 5 minutes because I really want to get your takeaway from that. So I hate to say, back in the day, we used to do handwritten thank you notes that we put a stamp on and put in the mail. We don't do that anymore. I have received a couple, and exactly, what Rachel said. I mean, what I'm finding, like with recent college grads and what they're learning at their career centers, the support that they're given, really think about the fine line between being aggressive and assertive, because there is a very fine line between those two. So, you got to figure out, how hard do I want to push? And am I being borderline obnoxious with folks right now? And I'm going to end there because I could go on for hours about this topic. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Michelle?
I know I'm going to follow Christine on that, to have one piece of advice. I guess because I don't really know, to everyone who's listening, whether they're still in school or finishing school or whatever, I would just say to be open-minded, to really reach out in your networks, and be open-minded about what you might want to do, unless you have a specific craft. Really try new things, reach out to every area that's open to talking to you. And, you've got 30, 40 years to work, and healthcare is a big world. My one piece of advice that could last your entire career is always remember that healthcare is an extremely small world. Don't ever burn a bridge. That's my biggest piece of advice for you. Everybody knows everybody. So always be good, do the right thing, and go in it with a big heart.
Those are great pieces of advice. Thank you. Emmett, to you next.
Sure. So everybody in this audience has already done the right thing. You went to UConn, you got the right education. You don't have to tell me about that for 2 pages. I see UConn, DGS, skip. Tell me what you do. Tell me what you want to do. Tell me what you're passionate about. I know that you took, Bio 101 and Chemistry 102. I know that stuff, right? I've seen hundreds of y'all. Tell me what you want.
Awesome. Thank you. And Abby, to wrap us up.
So it feels super cliche, but I think the biggest piece of advice, and I guess this is too, is to be present and to be your authentic self. And by being able to be authentic, you kind of have to be present. So this can be very career related, walking into an interview, just being in that room with those people who you're speaking to, kind of gauging where they're at and where you are, and just being yourself and really showing them who you are and what you can do and what you want to do. And then moving forward in your careers, just being aware of every moment and just taking it in and being like, this is special, this is important, and this is creating a ripple effect. And just knowing that you are starting that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists who provided some incredible insights into the positions you hire for, as well as your individual positions. And we are so appreciative of the time that you took to share with all of us. So that will conclude our panel for tonight. But thank you again for your time. Thank you everyone for attending. And I hope you have a great night. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.